The champagne glasses clinked in sync as laughter filled the white and gold engagement hall. A sea of pastel dresses, fake compliments, and sharper-than-necessary glances swirled around me like a storm I'd grown used to. I stood near the corner table, close enough to the family to be noticed, but far enough that they wouldn't invite me into their carefully curated perfection. And to my beautiful daughter, Claire, my mom's voice rang out, sharp and too loud, slicing the music like a blade. At least one daughter didn't disappoint us. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I didn't flinch. Not anymore. The crowd laughed softly, the kind of laugh that comes with fake smiles and shared cruelty. Someone even clapped. I saw Aunt Linda lean closer to her husband and whisper something while shooting me a sideways look. Her husband chuckled. I held my glass steady. My sister Claire, glowing in her designer gown, beamed and pressed a hand to her chest. "Oh, Mom," she said modestly. "Stop it." But her eyes flicked toward me too. Everyone's did. I smiled. Not with my eyes. Just enough that they couldn't say I was bitter. Inside, I felt that old ache stirring. That ache of growing up as the quiet daughter, the weird one, the one who never made the right choices. Claire had gone to Stanford. I'd gone to therapy. She wore pearls, I wore silence. She was the golden child. I was the invisible one. Jenna, someone muttered near the mimosa bar. Didn't she work at a coffee shop or something? I heard it. I always did. Before anyone else could say anything, the grand doors of the hall opened. The crowd shifted. Eyes turned. And then I heard his voice. "Sorry I'm late. My meeting ran long." That voice. Deep, calm, steady. The room went still. My mother's fake smile faltered. Claire blinked. I turned around. There he was. Elijah. Dark navy suit, perfectly tailored. His tie loose, like he hadn't had time to tighten it. His sleeves pushed just enough to reveal the watch I bought him the day we eloped. 6 months ago. Secretly. Quietly. He walked toward me, not them, and stopped just in front of me. Without a word, he took my left hand, kissed it softly, and looked around the stunned room. I didn't realize we were celebrating our housewarming tonight. Gasps. Real ones this time. All eyes dropped to the hand he'd kissed. To the ring. To the diamond. To the undeniable fact that Jenna, me, the disappointment, wasn't just married. I was married to him. To Elijah Ward. The CEO. The billionaire. The man whose name opened doors and closed mouths. My sister's jaw hung open. My mom's face turned pale. My father's wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. Still holding my hand, Elijah looked at my family. I'm Elijah, Jenna's husband. We were going to make our announcement soon, but it seems now works just fine. I didn't look at my mother. Or Claire. I didn't have to. The silence in that room? It was the loudest applause I'd ever heard. And it had only just begun. The air was thick, like someone had pulled all the oxygen from the room and replaced it with stunned silence. My mother blinked rapidly, her mouth opening, but no sound coming out. Claire, still perched on her gold velvet chair, clutched the edge of the table like she might faint. My father took a shaky breath and wiped his hand on his blazer, smearing wine down the front without realizing. Elijah Ward, Aunt Linda asked, stepping closer. Her voice trembled with something between disbelief and forced politeness. As in Ward International? Elijah offered a half-smile, polite but not warm. That's right. Jenna and I got married 6 months ago. It was personal, intimate, just the two of us. 6 months. Claire finally spoke, her voice brittle. You've been married for 6 months, and you didn't tell anyone? Why would she? My mother snapped, recovering just enough to spit venom. She probably trapped him. Elijah's face sharpened. Excuse me? My pulse skipped. I knew that look. He was holding back for me. I stepped forward and smiled faintly, like this was nothing more than an awkward dinner interruption. Elijah and I wanted to live life a little, without being shoved into some family photo frame where I'd always be the one with crooked edges. We bought a home, built the life. While you were planning another party I wasn't invited to, I was building something real. Claire stood abruptly, her chair screeching across the floor. Are you kidding me right now? You just stole my engagement thunder with some surprise husband stunt. Claire. My dad's voice cracked as he looked at me for the first time that night. Not as background noise, but as someone real. You married him? Yes, Dad, I said softly. I married the man who loves me, without comparing me to anyone. Who sees me, who doesn't call me a disappointment when I choose my own path. My mom folded her arms, shaking her head. This is a joke. You probably just serve him coffee and threw yourself at him. Elijah's jaw tightened. Actually, she turned me down. Twice. I came back because I saw something in her that none of you ever seemed to. Brilliance. Grace. Grit. The guests started murmuring now, some whispering, some outright staring, others pulling out their phones as if afraid to miss whatever came next. I saw one woman type Jenna Ward into a group chat. I turned toward the crowd, voice steady. I used to stand in corners like this all my life, praying someone would pick me. But I don't do that anymore. You think today is about Claire's engagement? That's fine. Let her have it. But don't think for a second I'll keep standing quiet while you all mock me. Elijah placed a hand gently on my back. We actually have another announcement. Claire groaned. Oh, come on. We closed on the new penthouse on 5th, Elijah said calmly. The one that used to be Senator Grove's. We're hosting a formal dinner there next Friday. Invitations will go out. Jenna's running the event herself. She's already designed the menu, curated the guest list, and selected the caterers. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. You mean she's hosting a political dinner? She asked in disbelief. No, I corrected her gently. I'm leading it. My father finally sat down, clearly realizing this wasn't just a twist in the story. It was the ending of the one they'd written without me. I never needed to outshine anyone, I added, voice soft but piercing. I just needed to stop living in shadows. There was no clapping now, just stunned silence. And it was glorious. After the silence came the whispers. They didn't shout anymore. They didn't laugh. They whispered like I was suddenly something sacred, unreachable, untouchable, unfamiliar. Not Jenna, the disappointment. Not Jenna the barista. But Jenna Ward. The woman who'd just flipped the entire family hierarchy without raising her voice. Claire stormed off the stage in a flurry of silk and sour rage. Her fiancé, Patrick, trailed awkwardly behind her, mouthing an apology my way. I didn't care. He was spineless. He'd stood beside her while she snubbed me for years. Elijah, Aunt Linda said, plastering on a crooked smile, I had no idea you were involved with Jenna. You're full of surprises. He glanced at her with polite disinterest. That's how we like it. I turned to my mother. She looked smaller now. Not because of age, but because the spotlight that had always shined on her favorite daughter had shifted, and she didn't know how to exist outside of it. This doesn't change anything, she said. You're still you. I am, I agreed. But now I'm me on my terms. And you'll never rewrite that again. Elijah leaned close and whispered, They don't deserve your grace. But you still give it. Because I need to leave clean, I murmured. No blood on my hands. Just silence. A server approached hesitantly. Mrs. Ward, Mr. Ward, the car is ready. Mrs. Ward. God, that felt good. We turned to leave, but my dad stood suddenly. Wait. I paused. I didn't owe him anything, but I gave him the courtesy. He cleared his throat. Why didn't you tell us? That hit harder than I expected. Because every time I brought you good news, I said quietly, you made me feel like it was never enough. And I didn't want to share my joy, just to watch you drain it again. He sat down slowly. As Elijah and I walked to the exit, my heels tapping against the marble like war drums, I heard a voice behind me. Claire's. Must be nice. Marrying money. I turned my head but didn't stop walking. I didn't marry money, I said over my shoulder. I married love. The money just came as a bonus.
She scoffed.
Elijah opened the car door for me, and I slid in slowly, holding his gaze the whole time. Once inside, the door closed, muffling the noise. He reached over and held my hand. "Are you okay?" he asked. I nodded. "I think I finally am." We drove off, leaving the gold-lit hall, the pearl-wrapped lies, and decades of emotional bruises behind us. But as we turned onto the main road, Elijah smiled faintly. "You sure you're ready for what comes next?" I looked out the window at the night sky.
Calm, vast, free.
"Let them come," I whispered. "Let every single one of them come. I'm not hiding anymore." We didn't go home that night. Instead, Elijah took a sudden turn off the main road, his hand resting on the wheel with that quiet confidence I'd fallen in love with. The streetlights faded as we drove toward the waterfront, where the city skyline reflected off the black glass of the Hudson River. "Where are we going?" I asked, glancing at him. He looked over at me and smiled softly. "You need to see something." 15 minutes later, the car pulled to a smooth stop in front of a sleek, modern building with a private elevator. The doorman greeted Elijah with a crisp nod. "Mr. Ward, Mrs. Ward." I never got tired of hearing that. We stepped into the elevator. As it ascended, floor by floor, I felt my stomach twist, not with fear, but with that thrilling uncertainty that comes when everything you used to hope for becomes real. When the doors opened, we stepped into a massive, glass-walled penthouse that looked out over the glittering city. The room was bathed in soft lighting. There was music playing quietly, some instrumental jazz drifting from invisible speakers. And then I saw it, a long dining table, already set with candles and silverware. A velvet envelope placed at the head of the table. My name embossed in gold, Jenna. I looked at him slowly. "Elijah, what is this?" He pulled out a chair for me. "Your dinner. Your announcement. You didn't get to speak tonight the way you should have. I wanted you to have the floor." My eyes stung. He sat across from me. "You've let people speak over you your entire life. Not tonight." I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It wasn't from him. It was from the head of the city's Arts Council. "Dear Mrs. Ward," it read. "Congratulations on being selected as this year's lead sponsor and keynote speaker for the Empowered Women of New York Gala." I gasped. What?" He leaned back and nodded. "I submitted your portfolio. Your work with struggling artists. Your poetry. Your curation projects. They read it all." I covered my mouth. "You're not just someone's wife," he said gently. "You're someone. You always were. It's just time everyone else learned it." That broke me. I cried then, not the bitter, angry tears of humiliation, but the soft, disbelieving kind that come when someone finally tells you, "You're seen." He reached over and wiped my cheek. "Do you know how hard it is to find someone in this world who still leads with kindness?" I looked away, still stunned. "I thought they'd bury me. They wanted to. They tried," he said. "But they didn't know you'd bloom underground." We ate in silence for a while after that. Every now and then, I caught myself smiling, not out of habit or defense, but because something inside me had uncurled, had breathed for the first time in years. After dinner, Elijah stood and walked toward the corner where 2 glasses of champagne waited. "I have one more surprise," he said. I laughed weakly. "You're spoiling me." He handed me a glass. "You deserve to be spoiled." Then he pulled something from his jacket pocket. Another envelope. I raised an eyebrow. "Okay, this is getting suspicious." He stepped closer. "It's from your father." My smile faltered. "What?" He slipped it to me before we left. "Said you might never open it if he gave it to you directly." My hands trembled as I took the envelope and sat back down. Inside was a folded letter, written in pen. "Jenna, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't even know if I deserve for you to. But I saw you tonight. Really saw you. Not the little girl we kept in the shadows. Not the one we thought would always stay small. I don't understand everything you've built, but I respect it. You looked powerful tonight. And happy.
And loved.
I hope I didn't kill the part of you that wanted a father who was proud. If it's not too late, I'd like to try to be better. Dad. I stared at the paper for a long time, my breath caught in my chest. I'm not sure how to feel, I whispered. You don't have to decide tonight, Elijah said gently. You don't owe them forgiveness, but you're allowed to heal. I nodded, and that night, for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep next to someone who knew every scar on my heart and never once tried to hide them. The morning sunlight poured through the tall glass windows, kissing the marble floors and warming the soft white sheets tangled around my legs. I lay there quietly for a few minutes, not moving, just listening to the hum of the city far below and Elijah's calm breathing beside me. This wasn't a dream. I wasn't back in my childhood bedroom, crying into a pillow because someone told me I wasn't enough again. I wasn't waiting on a text from a mother who only remembered I existed when Claire wasn't around to outshine me. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was home. And more than that, I had become someone I recognized when I looked in the mirror. A soft knock echoed from the penthouse door. Elijah stirred. You expecting someone? I sat up, wrapping the blanket around myself.
No.
He pulled on his robe and walked out. I heard the murmur of voices, then silence, then footsteps returning. Elijah appeared at the bedroom doorway, his eyes watchful. It's your mother, he said. And Claire. I felt my stomach twist. I hadn't heard either of their voices since the engagement night 2 weeks ago. Do you want me to send them away? I stared down at my hands.
No.
Let them in. When I walked into the living room, Claire was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, arms crossed. My mother sat on the edge of a velvet chair, visibly uncomfortable. I remained standing. I didn't come here to fight, my mom said quickly. Or to lecture you. Then why did you come? She looked at Claire, who gave her a reluctant nod. My mother sighed. Because I owe you an apology. I blinked. I watched you grow up thinking you were the weak one, she said quietly. Because you didn't follow the path we laid out. You didn't chase titles. You didn't smile on command. But you, Jenna, you became stronger than all of us. She paused. When I made that comment at Claire's engagement, I did it to hurt you. And I don't even know why anymore. Maybe I was jealous. Maybe I saw something in you I didn't understand. But I was wrong. Claire finally turned around. You humiliated me, she said bluntly. That night. I smiled faintly.
No.
I just stopped letting you do it first. She swallowed hard. I didn't know you were capable of all this.
No, I said.
You didn't want to know. Silence. I came, Claire said, her voice tightening, because Mom's right. We were cruel. We thought if we kept you down, we'd shine brighter. I raised an eyebrow. Did it work? She let out a hollow laugh.
No.
You shine now, and I feel small for the first time in my life. Elijah stood behind me silently, letting me lead. I was grateful for that. I'm not asking to be close, Claire added. But maybe one day, we could start over. I don't want to be strangers forever. I studied them. 2 women who had shaped my pain, who had sculpted every part of the old me with judgment and silence. And now they stood here, uncertain, small, and sorry. Maybe people don't change completely, but sometimes they try. I don't know if I can forgive everything, I said. But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to live free. My mother nodded slowly. That's all I hoped for. That you'd live. Really live. She stood, reached out slowly. Her fingers touched mine. And for once, it wasn't cold. 3 months later, I stood in front of a podium at the Empowered Women Gala. The room was filled with senators, artists, CEOs, and women from every walk of life. My face was on the screen behind me. Elijah sat at the front table, his eyes fixed on mine like I was the only one in the room. I adjusted the mic. When I was growing up, I wasn't the daughter they bragged about. I didn't come with ribbons or trophies. I came with stubbornness, silence, and too much emotion. And yet, I learned that even the quietest voice can shatter glass ceilings. Applause. I stand here today not because I was chosen, but because I finally chose myself. And that's the most powerful thing a woman can do. Thunderous applause. I looked at Elijah, who stood and clapped with everyone else, his eyes full of pride. And as I stood in that spotlight, I thought back to the moment at my sister's engagement when they all looked at me like I was nothing. And I smiled, because now they all had no choice but to look up at the woman they never saw coming.
At me.